What you're about to experience are my opinions and truths. I'm suggesting these possibilities for you to consider, enabling you to come up with your own conclusions. Ladies and gentlemen, code breakers around the world, wherever you may be, my name is Logan. I'm going to be your tour guide for this presentation on the topic In Light of the Devil. In Light of the Devil Decoded. I was kicking different ideas for this topic. This is what I landed on. And what you're seeing here, the image is from the Old Testament, the book of Numbers, where Moses lifts up the staff with the bronze serpent on it. And if you basically looked at it, touched it, you were saved, you had life. So this is what we're going to get into. In light of the devil, which is the serpent, right? Notoriously connected to the serpent. So let me start here. I'm going to give you the humdinger of humdingers of the presentation. Might as well just give you the whole enchilada here. And this is off of the New Testament. This is Jesus telling the church that he wishes they would pick hot or cold. I wish you would choose against me or with me. Which one is it? I wish you would pick, though. Why would Jesus offer you a choice? Well, this is how I feel it works. We know that Jesus is the bright morning star, which is Venus. And this is spirit into matter. And Venus is what heralds the sun. So Venus is love and light, and the sun is hot. I wish you were hot or cold. But on the opposite end, you got the devil. And you notice that the symbol of Mercury has that spirit into matter, but the variance is it has the crescent moon on top of its head. And this is the moon being cold. Because the moon is not hot. You can't get moon burned by going out during a full moon, but you can get sunburn, radiation poisoning. And I think, I'm not even going to say I think. I know this is how it works. I'm convinced that this is it. And the moon and the sun are the alpha and omega, the beginning and the end. That's why the devil ends it. The start of it is love and light. The end is cold thinking. Cold. The tree of knowledge. This is Prometheus. We talked about this in the Mercury Decoded. Mercury is Prometheus, the trickster, who gave knowledge to humans. Wasn't supposed to. And when that happened, people started to wake up. Because over here, you're completely blinded by the light. You cannot have one without the other here, these two. And this is why the symbols are almost identical. So now you know, and now we have confirmation because it's clear. Jesus in Revelation, I am the bright morning star, that's Venus. And we know Venus heralds the sun, meaning Venus is the star in the sky that will tell you the sun's coming during the dawn. Well, what ends up leaving the night sky is the moon. The night sky is the moon as the sun comes up. So the devil goes down into the underworld and Jesus comes up and is the savior from the devil. That's why Jesus saves you from the devil. because the moon goes down below the equator, down below the earth, into the underworld, and then the sun comes up and we get to live another day. And it becomes hot out. That's why people worship the sun. I was born on a Sunday. But this is what balances it out. And now you know, now you have all the keys that you need now to what this means and the polarization. So this is kind of starting it off with a bang, but let's get into the presentation. Right? You probably all like all the wow factor already. I did when I finally made this connection. And I have, thanks to a few people, and I'll get to that in a little bit later on. But I was looking at, let me go to it. I was looking at this Stellarium. And as we know, this is the spiral. The red line is the ecliptic, the line that all 12 of the disciples, the 12 zodiac signs, sit upon. And it goes and it spirals. And this is the southern hemisphere. And I know some of you, you're like, oh, it's not a globe. It ain't flat. How I know that to be true is because it is impossible to see these stars, to see octans and chameleon, if you're in the northern hemisphere. Impossible. It's not even possible. You can't see the South Star. You can't see the North Star. If you flip it and go into the north side, right here. If you go to the Big Dipper. Oh yeah, if you live in London or Arizona or even here in Mexico, you'll see all this. You'll see the Polaris. But if you go down below the equator, you don't see this. You can't. It curves out of your view. So if you go below the equator, folks, you cannot see Polaris in the southern hemisphere. This makes way more sense. And I'm not saying it's this. I know that there's a lot of other layers to it. But there's no, because if you had a flat earth, folks, you'd be able to look up no matter where you stood on the earth, and you'd be able to see Polaris. And you can't. You can't do it. Not possible. So between that and the 24-hour sun in Antarctica, completely demolishes flat Earth. But I just wanted to get that out of the way. I know some of you may get angry at me for that because you're a flat earther. Again, these are my opinions and truths, but please explain, if you are a flat earther, how you cannot see Polaris if you live in Chile or if you live in Cape Town, South Africa. Because if we live on a round disk and everybody gets to see the same canopy, everybody should be able to see Polaris, and they cannot. Can't do it. So it doesn't make any sense. Anyways, I was looking at the stars. I was looking at the constellations. And this right here is off the International Astronomical Union, which designates the 88 constellations. And here is the 88th. And it's very, very fascinating. And this is what got me started on this presentation. Because crux, which is the word for cross, is number 88. And 88, as we know, is tied to radium and Ra, which is tied to Christ. This 41 is tied to the word womb. So the 88 is tied to the womb, which is right here. And this star, this constellation, you can only see it if you live in the southern hemisphere. It's right here. There it is, crux. You can't see it if you live in the northern hemisphere. If you live in Mexico, if you live in London, if you live in Massachusetts, if you live in Chicago, you're not going to be able to see the Southern Cross. Nonetheless, here it is, the numerology of it in Latin. That's where it came from. 41 matches the womb 41. Remember, Vatican City sits at 41 degrees north latitude. And then I'm like, oh, what would be the 226th constellation? Well, we just do the same rules we do with the cards and the tarot. There are only 88 constellations, so we subtract 88 until we get to 88 or below, and we end up getting to constellation number 50. And that one is octans. I know this is so valuable, ladies and gentlemen. Octans is in the shape of this. It's right here. Here's octans. What does that look like to you? What does this look like to you? Yeah, it's the square and compass. At least it's the compass. It's the compass in Masonry. And they use the Bible as their playbook. The cross. Of course, we know it's a huge deal with the Society of Jesus and the Catholic Church and Christianity. They all are tied to the crux, and the crux is in the southern part of the sky, which is in the Tropic of Capricorn. Tropic of Capricorn. Father Time. And the pole star in the south is called Sigma Octantis, which is 143 in Latin. I'm keeping it in the Latin, and I knew that it was tied to neodymium 60. Of course, 143 is a permutation of pi. And everything goes in circles. See the circles here? So we're going somewhere with this because Neo's the savior, and this is tied right to next to the cross. Is this the way in? Is this how we get into this reality? And you got to go up and ascend to Polaris to get out? Because we're always looking on the entrance and exits. The southern part of the sky, as I've said, does this represent hell? Because the red line denotes the ecliptic, that everybody gets to see those. And then this is the southern part of the sky, the southern hemisphere. And then this would be the northern hemisphere, this one. Just flips it upside down, and then there's the northern hemisphere. So this, ladies and gentlemen, just may be the entrance point of spirit. How we get in here. And then do we get stuck in here? Do we get stuck inside of this? Is this the prison? I'm not saying it's exactly like this. I know there are holes in all the theories. But everything goes in circles. So this cross, this is the Southern Cross. It's interesting because it sits right next to Centauri. This thing's really tough to navigate sometimes. Centaurus is the centaur, which is tied to Chiron, which is the wound that you have in your astrological chart. There are the stars. But the cross has 4 stars. So I measured them in Latin. Here are the words in Latin, since the church wants to use the cross, and they're the ones that founded it and formed it. Well, it becomes the 188, and the 188 is the weight of one of the isotopes of osmium. And if you just watched my portals Decoded, you would have seen that the osmium is the beast. It's going to be element 189. Isotope 189 with the beast, but osmium is the operating system. Osmium in Latin is 65, which matches to this word in Hebrew, which is bronze, which is what this is tied to. This is Jesus talking to the church after He tells them, if you're not hot or cold, I'm going to spit you out of my mouth. If you're lukewarm, I got no use for you. So you got to be polarized on the cross. That's why Jesus turns to the right and talks to the thief on the right. So this is the theonumerology of Revelation 3 verses 16. Here is the Greek outcome, 143, which is right here, which is tied to the South Pole star. Maybe, just maybe, this is the reincarnation loop right here. You keep coming in, keep coming in. Remember, the south represents under your feet. The dirt is what we're made up of. The seed is under the ground that grows. The resurrection is tied to the south to the north, not the other way around. And when you do the theonumerology, when you just add up all of the verses of each of the chapters, there are 3. And here they are, 20 plus 29 plus 60, you get 65, and that's tied to copper. Copper is Venus. Venus is tied to the sun. Venus is tied to love. Copperhead snake, the serpent. The bronze serpent in Numbers 21 verses 9 that Moses lifts up. This 143 from the South Pole star is the same outcome as when you spell the word prison out. You add up all these protons, you get 143. So what is this saying that the prison is? The prison is the choice of hot or cold, light and dark. That's the prison. Being on the cross. 143 is a permutation of pi. So we covered this, where neodymium has that melting point of 1016, and the very first scripture that talks about the blood of Christ and the body of Christ is 1 Corinthians 10 verses 16. And what is the choice? The blood and the bread to keep you in the serpent's mouth. That's why, how do you get spit out of something if you're not in it? This is a huge construct that keeps people reincarnated over and over and over. And I have a really strong feeling about this is the portal that keeps it flowing, coming from the underworld. This is the southern part of the sky. Remember, if you plant a seed in the ground, you put it in the southern part of the earth. And then it reaches for the light in the northern part of the earth, where the sun comes up. This is the Southern Cross, folks. If you're a fan of Black Sabbath, they have a song called The Sign of the Southern Cross. Why do you think they wear crosses? All these numbers. There's another amazing image. I'll spit you out of my mouth. So getting into the serpent now, right? Here's the bronze serpent from Numbers 21 verses 9. Moses lifting up the staff. And that is exactly the same outcome as cross from the original word staros in Greek. 108. How about that? Not a coincidence. See, Moses holds up a pole. Staros is a wooden pole. This is a Roman invention. The real cross, if you go and do the etymology of it, staros is just this wooden beam right here. That's it. But of course it doesn't matter. 46 on the periodic table gives us that 108, as does 47. But 46 is the most pure. 46 is the opposite of 64, which is how many possible codons in our DNA. 23 and 23 gives you 46. Palladium comes from Pallas, which was the Greek goddess that was Zeus's favorite. And it's also arsenic. How do we get 108 from arsenic? You just add up the neutrons, protons, and electrons of arsenic. 33 plus 75 gives you 108. And this 33, of course, we know how big that number is, but arsenic is poison. It's poisonous. And the only astrology sign that has that cross above is Saturn. Time. This is love stuck in time. When we look at it from the card perspective, and we put these two elements together and we get the cards associated with them, we get a 77. 7 of spades, 7 of diamonds. The 7s are the L. 7 is the mystic. 7 means L. L is tied to Mercury. Mercury is tied to the serpent. It's just so interesting that Jesus tells, get away from me, Satan. That's the path of the sin path. So I'm going to be really honest with all of you folks. There is beauty in the story of Jesus. Without question there is. There's tons of it in there. Which is why people don't see the dirt. They never would think of looking in the bulletproof story. But when you start to connect the things, whatever created this reality is a hell of a lot smarter than people, and that means that people don't figure it out. So these cards, when we go to the cards of illumination, especially we start with the 7 of diamonds in the spirit side. Well, it sits in the Saturn line. Just going back here. There it is. Again, there's the cross. And it sits in space number 33, of course, because this is the 33rd card. And what's sitting over here is the 9 of hearts, which is the wish fulfillment. This is 79, which is gold. We know the blood of Jesus is tied to gold. You're looking at this is somebody having everything and anything they want. And then this is somebody who, through the cards now, is analyzing what's important and what's not. Sifting through. But when you take 33 and 9, because this is the 9th card, and you add them up, you get 42. Which is that 3 of spades. So this is the conception card of Jesus. We already covered that. So this is where it gets, I don't even know what to say, man. And I'm not taking any credit for this. And I'm not saying that my mind found it. Somebody had sent me an email. I'm telling you, right, folks, this is what happened. I'm doing this presentation. I put all this stuff together today, which today is Thursday, July 31st. I get an email notification. I open it up and I get this somebody sent me, says, this looks really interesting. So I clicked on the video and it was from this guy, Jonathan Kleck. Maybe you know who he is. He's a massive religious dude. I don't follow his stuff because he's too polarized. But this was seemingly from him, and this completely blew my mind. It blew my mind, and I know you're going to be jaw on the floor, blow your mind as well. Because this discovery, ladies and gentlemen, is a humdinger on steroids. This is the mouth of a serpent. And what he showed was that the Virgin Mary fits right inside that serpent's mouth. That's it. This is the Virgin Mary. It's the serpent. And we know that the serpent is in the Chinese zodiac. The serpent is sign number 6. Virgo is sign number 6. Virgo is the virgin. So I know that that he showed, this is his video, I know that this is absolutely accurate. And it completely, and again, of course, it was all online. Like, I'm working on this stuff and I get this email from somebody, I don't know who it was, and they send me this video. And I was like, oh, wow, mind blown. And I'm doing this presentation for all of you. I was working on my slides. So now you know what the serpent is tied to. And that's why in the Vatican they have the serpent auditorium, and why they revere the Queen Mary. Mary's the Virgin, Virgo. Virgo in Chinese is the serpent. Sign number 6, Virgo is sign number 6. And what is Virgo ruled by? Mercury. Traditionally, it's Mercury. And in the medicine cards, the hilarious thing is, it is the snake. Jesus has a root number of 6. 8 plus 7 is 15. 1 plus 5 is 6. That's why the serpent offers you life in the Old Testament. All this serpent reference now, and we are in the year of the snake. We are in the year of Virgo. And he pops this out, man. Just came out yesterday. Somebody sends it to me. So I don't take any credit for this, but then I add it on, and now obviously this is the Lovers card. The 6th card in the tarot is the Lovers, and there's the serpent right behind the tree. So this obviously is the Virgin Mary, tied to the Godhead, and the serpent is tied to Jesus, which is tied to Mercury, and it's tied to Venus. Love, light, coldness, numbness, knowledge, and life. So now you have a huge, huge, huge reveal. Huge. This is a big reveal. And again, I take no credit for this. It's this man right here, Jonathan Kleck, which again, I don't even resonate with his information because he's too polarized with religion. But anyway, that doesn't take anything away from what he was given. And it was a huge, and I don't know if he was the one who originated it, but it's there. And there is no doubt about it that is the freaking Virgin Mary. And it looks like a vagina. So when Jesus says, I will spit you out of my mouth, what do you think the mouth is? The serpent. It's this. I will spit you out of my mouth. I will spit you out of pie. I will spit you. This is 60. If you remove the 0, you're left with 6, and 6 is Virgo. The snake, the Lovers. This reduces down to the number 6, folks. Jesus was born of a virgin, born of the serpent. Are you seeing this? I hope so. This is profound information. So let's take it a step further. Let's go to the card system. And we're just going to use the Master Life, Master Spirit spread. And I'm going to go to space number 6. And what's sitting in there? Of course, the 6 of Hearts, which is what? Reincarnation. It's carbon. 6 plus 12 is 18. Jesus equals 18. And look at what line it's sitting in. Mercury. And vertically, Uranus, which means heaven. This is indicating that this takes you out of your heavenly space. Over here, what you end up turning into is an architect. And the diamonds, as we know, they're on the snakeskin. Do you see all those diamonds all over the snakeskin? We already covered it. That's the hourglass. That's why it's the copperhead snake. The 3 of diamonds is card number 29, and 29 is tied to Venus. So Venus and Mercury seemingly are working together in this rope-a-dope, back and forth, yin-yang, hot-cold scenario of the cross. The cross has 2 sections to it. Are you seeing this? I hope you're seeing this. The diamonds is 29. And it sits in that line of Mercury. Mercury has 7 stable isotopes, matching up with the menorah, which I covered in this decode. which was a huge reveal. All this is coming back around. The serpent of Mercury. First time I released that Mercury is the serpent. This is Prometheus. So this is a big deal, folks. This is a really big deal. So now you know that's the Virgin Mary. That is the Chinese snake, and that is Virgo. We're in the sign of Virgo right now, which is why this popped out. Copper and carbon. Love gets you back to reincarnation. It gets you back into deoxyribonucleic acid. Here's another confirmation of the serpent tied to Mercury. This is the very first scripture in Genesis where the serpent comes on the scene, or the serpent is talked about. Genesis 3 verses 1. It gives you a numerology of 80. 80 is the protons of Mercury. 80 is tied to the tree of life. Tree of life in Hebrew numerology is the number 80, which is deoxyribonucleic acid. The prison. Now, if you get to go back to a paradise where there's no evil in this world and there's no pain and suffering, well, that's a different story. That's a completely different scenario. But how does things work when there's no death? So we covered this in the Serpent of Mercury. All of this, tree of life, the first time the serpent comes on the scene, same numerology. Yeah, Mercury, tied to Venus. Love and the serpent. You know, I'm going to be really kind of, folks, what do guys have in their pants? I'm not getting sexual, but come on, man. It's sex. You got a serpent in your trousers, man. And what are you going to do with that? I'm going to make love. I'm going to make a baby. Yeah, and what happens when you make a baby? You put another player on the board. How do you do that? Because I have the thought came into my mind and I want to make love. That's thinking is Mercury and love is Venus. The serpent being 43. 43 is the 14th prime number, and the 14th letter in the Hebrew alphabet is Nun, which is the serpent. Nun. If you follow Amon Hillman's work, he calls himself the Nun of Nazareth, the serpent of Nazareth. Mercury, Prometheus. And then the 43rd prime is tied to the 191. And if you've ever used human growth hormone, human HGH is a DNA, it's a 191 amino acid profile. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein, which is DNA. 191 is tied to 43. Deoxyribonucleic acid is 69. 69 is the numerology output of the word ophis, which is serpent. Which is the yin yang, man. 347 is the 69th prime. So when you go on with this even more with numerology, it gets very, very obvious, and it just solidifies the position here that Mercury, again, has 7 stable isotopes. The only other one that has that is xenon, which is tied to Zeus. 199 is the 46 prime number. There's the word of life in Hebrew, the tree of life. And double helix. Remember, nucleotides is 46. Providence, eye of providence is 46. 46 is tied to titanium, the titans, the sons and daughters of Earth. So this slide right here shows the connection between the snake and Virgo. In the Chinese, the snake is linked to Virgo. Sign number 6, sign number 6. And Virgo's ruled by Mercury. And Eve was a virgin. And the serpent represents a penis. Virgo is, and Chinese snake is carbon. Carbon-based life forms. Were we spiritual beings that weren't carbon-based at one point? The Mayans talk about going back to a silica body, like a light body. Is that the next stage of evolution to get out of duality? But you must remove all this polarization. And you have lithium, which is tied to the brain. There's the 6. There's the 6. 6. Serpent and the woman is 70. Which, interesting, this is tied to the watchers. Watchers in Hebrew is 70. That's tied to the square root of 3 because 70 is Ederbium, which has got an isotope of 173, putting you through the vesica piscis, the womb. See, I'll just go there just on the fly and show you what I'm talking about. If I go, 70 is the serpent and the woman, so I'm going to go to element number 70, and that's Ederbium. And what do we have right there? 173. What is the square root of 3? 173. What is the square root of 3 measure? The vesica piscis. What is the vesica piscis? It's this. The womb. This is the vesica piscis. There's the two circles coming together. So this is in physical form. You have the queen of heaven. The cosmology is the eclipses, both solar and lunar. Not everybody incarnates to play the good character. You would need opposition. That's why Jesus says, I wish you'd pick either me or not me, so you could stay in the game, because I need opposition. Otherwise, there's no challenges in life. When you reduce these down, the serpent and the woman, they become the 7 and the 9, which is gold. And when we go right to the cards from their single fashion, we have the 7 of cups and 9 of hearts. The serpent becomes the 7 and the woman becomes the 9. And there they are right there. And what is this sitting in? This is the serpent. Serpent is 43 and it reduces down to 7. That's the 7 of hearts. It sits in the Mercury line, the last card, Mercury, Neptune. There's the devil's pitchfork. 7 is L. Mercury in the Gnostic archons is L. And then where's the 9 of hearts representing the woman? It's in this Venus space. Venus horizontally, Venus vertically. Venus represents the woman, love, wish fulfillment. See, the serpent says, oh, if you eat the apple, you'll be able to see everything. Oh, I want to be able to see everything. Wish fulfillment. These two cards match up with these two. 7 and 9, which came from Saturn. Saturn, which has a really bad rap, but it's time. Love stuck in time. That's what these mean. $79 is gold, folks. But this is a no-brainer. Mercury sitting in space, number 7. 7 colors of the rainbow. 7 days of the week. 7 chakras. How do you get all that stuff? In duality. And it just, the 9 of hearts, which represents the woman, sits in the Venus space, which is female. It's just, and the 9 repeats. That's all it does. So more on the Mercury. Since Mercury is tied to the tree of life through this, the double helix, the serpent, the deoxyribonucleic acid, and then Mercury here is tied to Armageddon. This was off of another decode we did on Mercury, straight up, where the word Armageddon is 80. And Armageddon is the place where the 16 pieces go against the 16 pieces. This is the light against the dark. Love and fear. Good and evil. Hot and cold. Going against each other. When you do the numerology of Revelation, 16 verses 16, 16 pieces on the white, 16 pieces on the black, you get 156. Excuse me. You get 156, which is tied to gadolinium. There's the GD, and when you add up the neutrons, protons, and electrons of gadolinium 156, you get 220, which is the tree of life and tree of knowledge, because it's the white against the black. It's the sun against the moon. It's the day against the evening. It's the yin against the yang. That's all it really means. It's the sun against the moon. If you're white in chess, you're the sun. If you're black in chess, you're the moon. Not everybody incarnating through these eclipses incarnates to be a good character. We have a blend of both. Some people incarnate to play the villain. Because if everybody was the superhero, there would not be any superheroes. Because the superhero would not have a job. Just like if there was no bacteria and fungi invading the body, there would be no need for an immune system. This is the immune system. This is the bacteria, fungi, and mold and everything else that invades the body. If you do it through food, this is raw, this is fried. Fried foods, raw foods. Brand new car in the junkyard. See the difference? That's all it is. It's the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. That's it. Now you have it all. The tree of life is the sun, which gives you life, and the tree of life gives you the knowledge. This is Prometheus, the one that steals the fire and gives it to the humans. You can't do that though. Why can't you do that? Because now your eyes are open, now you see everything. Whereas before, the only thing you saw was hot. That's why they were naked in the Garden of Eden. Because they didn't know that there was an opposition. So the last slide I'll show you here is what it looks like to exit the game of life. These are all reduced down. Well, this one is 29. Diamonds. Exit the game of life. The three of diamonds. The architect. It matches lukewarm, which matches the word stomatos in Greek. That's off of Revelation 3 verses 16. Jesus saying, I'm going to spit you out of my stomatos. That's the mouth. The diamond. The diamonds, man, which are on this serpent. A serpent's skin has diamonds on it. Even the mother, even the Virgin Mary, if I go to the card system, the birthday that they give the Virgin Mary is September 8th. There's the three of diamonds. And that card sits right here, which is paired with the six of hearts on the spirit side. So this is the virgin giving birth to the child, the baby. 6 is in Chaldean numerology. The word baby is 6. There it is, 6. So now you have all of the tools, folks. What does this mean? You're never going to stop doing both of these. It's just that the rituals that go into doing these crazy, silly things. And now you know that these are two sides of the same coin. This is the right-hand path. This is the left-hand path. That's why the left-hand path is tied to occult knowledge, stuff that's hidden. Why is it hidden? Because it's in the underworld. This is all occult down here, folks. Scorpio kind of starts it off. This is Sagittarius, the smartest sign. Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, these are all tied to the tree of knowledge. The tree of life is up here. Like, this is when the sun's shining. Venus is the one that heralds the sun. Jesus is the bright morning star known as Venus. The Father, no one gets to the Father except through me. The Son. Helios. Okay? This is Selene. The moon, the brother of Helios. The sister of Helios. Eclipses are where it's at. There's an eclipse right there. So when you have lunar eclipses, the moon, that's why the lunatics come out. When there's a full moon, mosquito activity can go up to 500% higher. The werewolves, the moon is nighttime. People are mainly sinning at night. Not saying they're not going to sin during the day, but the polarization of sinning normally happens at nighttime. People go to nightclubs, they party at night. It's called a nightclub. So typically, and I'm not saying it can't be here, because it can. But the polarization are these two right here. I am the Alpha and Omega. I am a sun and a shield. Psalms 84 verses 11. And they represent Jesus and the devil. And that's as simple as it gets, folks. So now you know, you have all the tools. Especially, with this is a big one. This is huge. Because it confirms the fact that Virgo and the snake and Chinese and the number 6 is really where it's at. And this reduces down to the number 6. Carbon-based life forms. Okay. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure this one, because of that we found, of course, again, not me taking credit, but because of what's been discovered, people are going to, you get a lot of you are going to like, oh, wow, this is an amazing decode. I mean, it is. But now you have the eyes to see, and if you watch the portals decoded, you know that the beast system, ladies and gentlemen, is this. This is the beast system. Because in order to play the game, you got to be polarized. You got to be polarized in the most pronounced way. But now you know. And we live in predestination, so everything that I've told you here doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so if you saw something, if you have any comments, leave them down in the description. That'd be cool. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got for today. My name is Logan for Decode Your Reality. Until next time, we will see you later.